Check, check, check. 1, 2. Can you hear me now? Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. So apologize for that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start all over, but I'm not gonna rewrite um, everything. Right? I'm just gonna start all over from the top. Okay, and then look at the things that I've written down and explain that again to you. Okay, so we're gonna have about half an hour of lesson left, so we're gonna start all from the beginning. Sorry about the lack of sound there, some technical issues. Okay, so we're here to look at Close All the Windows by Cyril Wong, and this is a poem written, and the first thing that I asked earlier on was that when we look at a poem, we always ask ourselves a few questions. For example, what is the poem about, right? What is the poem about in terms of the subject? Just move this a bit, right? In terms of the subject, okay, does it help if we look at the title, Close All the Windows, right? I mean, it's a bit vague, this title, so maybe not. I think if you read the poem until the end, then you will probably be able to kind of like understand why this title is used, right? Why this title of for example, is significant to this poem, right? So we're gonna look at annotate. So I've already annotated this first stanza, right, for you. Sorry for the lack of sound just now. Okay, we look at the DC routine. D means denotative and C means connotative, right? So I first looked at the phrase discovering the internet. Right, we look at the word discover, the denotative meaning or the direct meaning I've indicated in black, right? Discovering could mean finding, right? Discovering could mean learning about, okay? But what else does it imply, right? What does it imply? When you discover something, obviously there's this idea that it is new, okay? For example, it could be that it is exciting, right? Maybe the person who discovered it, right, feels excited about it, right? Obviously the internet is referring to the World Wide Web, okay? And this one is obviously well, literally it means the World Wide Web, which is you know, the your resource for all the information online. Okay, as you read the poem, I don't know whether this is could be a metaphor for something else, right? I mean, you always have to consider that um, because this is poetry after all. So is it a metaphor? Okay, is it a metaphor for something else, right? Okay, so his mother has discovered the internet, right? And but what is happening is his mother is having trouble finding a connection. Okay, so we look at the word mother next, and obviously the mother. When we look at mother, we understand it to be a maternal parent, right? It is his or her maternal parent, right? But what about the implications, right? Looking at the context, looking at the internet, for example, okay, talking about this parent discovering for the first time maybe the internet, it could imply that this person is elderly, obviously, right? If you read the poem, you even in the first stanza, he's at work, so he's an adult. Obviously the mother is much older than him, right? Maybe it implies that she's firstly elderly, maybe secondly not savvy, for example, right? In terms of technology, and maybe not adept, right? In this spelling, adept, not adept, to working with the computer, maybe working with technology, right? I didn't really look at the meaning of trouble because it's quite straightforward, right? Trouble means difficulty, right? Some difficulty. Okay, so to me that's not that important. For me, the next important idea is finding a connection. This word connection, what does it mean literally? Literally, it means in terms of the context of the internet, maybe a link, right? Or the Wi-Fi is not working, or the network is down. So she's having trouble finding a connection. So she's having trouble with the link that she has, or the Wi-Fi, or maybe her internet search is not effective, right? So what else could it mean, right? What it could it imply, for example? What is a connection? Is it in purple I've written down as a sense of belonging, right? Or is it the relationship between them, right? Between the mother and someone else. Okay, so that could be the other meaning, or the other association. Okay, I think the next thing that for me is very significant is the word miscommunicating, right? We go on to read the poem. It says, she calls me up and calls me up for help while I am at work. This is quite straightforward. We keep miscommunicating. Now, there's probably very important reason why. I'm just looking at the chat now. Okay, good. There's probably a very important reason why he uses this word. And sometimes, in my experience, when I read poetry, the last word in the line, okay, there's an emphasis to it. You know, we keep miscommunicating, right? Full stop. Okay, the last word is emphasized to a certain extent when you read it. When you read it towards the end, okay, literally, does it mean that they misunderstand each other? Right? Is it they misunderstand each other? Okay, is it only that? Okay, or does it imply something else? Is it because they speak different languages? Right? Or is it also implying that there is a rift, or there is a gap between them? Right? So when you miscommunicate, right, with a person that you're supposed to have a close relationship to, mother and son, obviously they're supposed to have a close relationship. But I think also I forget to emphasize that he says we keep miscommunicating. That means they always do that. So do they always not speak, or not speak the same language? Do they always not communicate at the same frequency, for example, right? Okay, for want of a better phrase. So let's look at the stanza again, right? And after we read it, and after we kind of like explore all the possible meanings and associations, does it mean only what it literally states here, or there's something more to it? Obviously, there's something more to it. If you look at the rest of the poem, you will discover that there is something more to this connection that she finds trouble getting, that the miscommunication that they have between them, right? So let's move on to the second stanza. She has clicked open so many windows, right? Clicked open. Obviously, this is quite straightforward. When you're using the computer, you open. Maybe she's talking about, when he says many windows, is he talking about the browser, the internet browser, right? Or is he talking about the different types of windows? For example, it could be the file manager, could be, all these windows that you can find in a computer, right? She's clicked open so many windows, right? The computer threatens to hang, right? So what's the next significant word? I think to me, threatens, right? Threatens is to me a very significant word here. Okay, computer threatens. What does the word threaten mean? Is it a warning? Right? Warns you about something, right? So, but what else does the word threaten also mean? Imply. excuse me, what else the word threaten also imply, right? It implies something, an impending, um, is it an impending misfortune, mishap, danger, perhaps, yeah, or mishap, right? Something that bad is going to happen, right? The computer threatens to hang. So literally, threatens to hang means the computer threatens to. I mean, if you open too many windows in a computer, obviously you know it's taking up too much resources, and the computer might freeze up, right? So hang, that means freeze up. Okay, but I think this probably refers to a more significant, something more significant than just literally the referring to the computer. So as you read this, I can't help but think that there is this extended metaphor throughout, okay, throughout this about the computer, about connections to the internet. Cyril Wong is using this as a metaphor to imply something else, right? It could be related to this idea of miscommunication. Okay, so he goes on to say, the persona goes on to say, and my logic runs out of variations to explain the same thing over and over. Okay, my logic, what does logic mean? Logic means a sense of a rationale, right? He's trying to rationalize, for example, with the mother. My logic, my explanation. A logic means to explain. A kind of explanation, right? I hope you can see that. Yeah, I'm just move the paper a bit here, right? A kind of explanation, a kind of rationale. Okay, my logic runs out of variations. So, in other words, he runs out of different ways to explain, right, the same thing over and over, right? But here, you tend to so first we look at, let's go back to the DC routine, right? So you look at the meaning of logic. Logic is rational, explain, right? But what does it imply? This whole idea of his logic running out of variations to explain the same thing over and over, right? It seems as if he's frustrated, right? To me, this idea, this whole event that is happening here, my logic runs out of variations to explain the same thing over and over, especially because of the repetition. There's repetition here of the word over and over, right? So it seems as if this shows some sort of frustration in him, right? A kind of frustration. I mean, I guess all of us can identify with this, right? When we try to explain something to someone who cannot understand, but it seems too simple to us. It seems straightforward, but to the other person, I guess it's not that simple, right? And so when you try to explain it a different way and they still don't understand, and you try to explain it another way and they still don't understand, so obviously this implies not just from the meaning of the individual words or phrases, this whole experience that he has here, this whole experience implies a certain amount of frustration, right? Okay, suddenly, so we go on to the next part of the poem, the next stanza, right? This is the next stanza. I imagine she is looking for her future through that glowing screen. Okay, I'm not going to go to the last line yet. Just look at these 3 lines. I imagine. Okay. What does the word imagine mean directly? Okay. Imagine means to visualize. Imagine she is looking for her future. I visualize. I suppose. What does that mean? Does imagine mean I suppose? Okay, you can write it down. If it doesn't work for you, you can scratch it out later, right? What else does imagine imply? Okay, I mean, this is obviously the literal translation of the word, or the literal uh, understanding of the word imagine. You know, to visualize, to suppose, to maybe to suggest, right? To suggest something, right? But what does imagine imply he is doing? I imagine she's looking for her future. Does it imply that he's trying harder? He's trying harder to understand. Could it be that? Right? You know, when sometimes you try to understand someone, okay, but you can't, and then you start to imagine yourself in their shoes. You try to put yourself in that person's shoes. So this is what he is saying here. I imagine she is looking for her future. He is putting himself in her shoes, right? So does imagine also mean that someone is trying to empathize, right? Could it mean that when you try to put yourself in someone's shoes, you're trying to empathize? Right? It seems quite logical to me, right? To think that that could be a possible. That is possible, right? And I guess in the context of the poem, right? Not just in the context of helping his mother through looking for or finding a connection to the internet, right? But in the context of their relationship, the two of them, right? When people try to understand each other, is it helpful if they try to empathize? I suppose it does help, right? So I imagine she's looking for her future through that glowing screen. Okay, why does he say future? Okay, is it? So let's look at the direct meaning of future. Future means the how do you define future? Future is the coming moment, the what you look forward to, the coming times, okay? Times that are coming, okay? Your potential life, for example, right? The future, right? The time that is to come, right? That's what it means, the time that is to come. But it's quite interesting, because this woman is quite elderly, so normally we don't associate, I guess, maybe I'm stereotyping, but we associate like someone looking for their future to younger people, right? But I mean, I think I'll just scratch that thought out and consider something else. So for her future, so maybe she is considering her life, isn't it? Yeah, I think future is talking about her life. Okay, not just, sorry, I think I forgot to mention this, but when you talk about the internet, right, future also implies high tech. Yeah, she's looking for her future, right? She's looking for I don't know, I guess it to a certain extent implies technological advancements, maybe, right? Right, which is useful to know here, but I don't think it is significant in terms of the meaning of the poem, right? Through that glowing screen. Obviously, the glowing screen is talking about the monitor. Okay, the computer monitor. Right? So the glowing screen. But why glowing? Okay? Um, what does glowing mean? Bright, lit, yeah. I mean, literally, it means that it's bright and it's lit, right? But glowing, um, to me, it implies something else. Maybe a promising, something promising, because of the relationship with the word future, isn't it? For her future through the glowing screen. So when you talk about promising, do you also consider the word hope or the idea of hope? Okay, because if you read the next part, right, and I am really helping her, not just so he's kind of realizing that he's not just helping her with her technological problems or computer problems. What he's saying next is, I am really helping her to find back her life, right? So something is being implied here, right? So in the first stanza, we look at the word discovering the internet, right? My mother has trouble finding a connection. And then he goes on saying that, and she's asking him for help, calls me up for help, right? But in fact, he is saying that she is really helping her to find back her life. So is the earlier part, the internet and the connection, is that merely, is it really just a metaphor for this? That he is helping her to find back her life. Yeah, it seems likely, right? It seems likely her life after all her children have left for new homes. So now we kind of realize, okay, something has happened, right? Okay, all her children have left for new homes. So in other words, they have vacated. Now this is the direct meaning. Vacated her house, their what you call it, their parental home, right? So they vacated the mother's house. But what does it imply? All her children have left. The word left, it seems to imply a certain abandonment, right? That she's being abandoned. Could that mean that all her children have abandoned her for new homes, new families to love? And the next line kind of like emphasizes this, or kind of proves this to some extent. All her children have left for new homes, new families to love, right? So it seems that she is lacking this love, isn't it? Right? And that's probably the reason why she called her son, right? He's probably left her home as well, right? To set up his own home. And in asking him questions about the internet, she's actually just trying to connect with him on a different level, or connect with him again, reconnect with him, right? Because he has left her home and is no longer around, all the time. Okay, so we look at the word what now, or the phrase what now, she asks. Okay, this is quite interesting because as the poem takes how to say, as the poem starts to take a fuller meaning, right? The poem starts to take a fuller meaning. The more I read, the more meaningful the poem becomes, right? So every line adds to the meaning of the poem, or adds to the message of the poem. Just now we talked about what the poem is about. Now we're going to go into the theme, or the message that the poem is trying to convey. Here we're talking about theme, right? I'm going to write it at the top here, because this question is very significant. What now, she asks. If you look at it directly, right, I'm using black again. She is asking what to do, with her computer. so that she can get to the internet, right? Okay, isn't that what it directly means? But the question actually is much more significant. Is what now? As in, they've come to a kind of like a moment to decide how to move on. How to move on with their lives. Okay, especially her, man, she doesn't know how to move on. Right? All her children have left her. So she's asking what now? Right? I mean, directly it means what to do with a computer, but in in the context of the meaning, or rather the message of the poem, right? It is actually, I guess maybe she's in crossroads, right? She doesn't know what to do with her life. So what now, she asks. Okay, and obviously the most appropriate way that he can help her, right, to move on is to, he says, try again. Okay, I reply. Okay, try again. Pressed to my ear. Pressed. This is important to me because it means that he wants to hear better. Right? But what does it imply? It implies that he is more invested in her problem. Right? He wants to help. He wants to listen closely and help. Right? We're gonna end this lesson in about 3 minutes. Okay, so I need you to do all the annotation, right? And pass up to me tomorrow. Okay. I'm gonna talk about the whole poem once again, right? Let's look at the last stanza once again. Try again, I reply, the phone pressed to my ear. Close all the windows. We haven't talked about that. Close all the windows, the title. Let's talk about the title now. Okay, this is in the title. It's repeated here in the poem. Close all the windows. So when you talk about the direct meaning of close all the windows, what does it mean? I mean, I guess it means to reset the desktop, right? To reset the desktop, to reset the computer. Okay, but in this bigger significance of the poem, right? Of the message of the poem, what could it mean, right? Close all the windows, especially when he says try again. Okay, so when you're having a miscommunication with someone, with a relationship with someone, right? Having problems, okay, it's very important that you are willing to start again, right? This is important, a willingness to start again. And then he asks the question, what do you see, right? So this is important for you to really look at the problem closely, right? What do you see? To look, right? Look, not just look, but I guess to open. I think the implied meaning is to open your eyes wide, right?